Well, good evening, everyone. My name is John Holland. I'm a student success advisor with ICANN. And I want to thank you all for joining me this evening for tonight's Facebook Live presentation. Tonight's topic is covering college costs, and it's going to be talking a little bit about comparing some financial aid offers from college to college. So whether you're joining me live on Facebook Live or whether you're watching this as a recording in the upcoming months, like I said, I do want to thank you all for watching this presentation. So if you're watching this presentation live, you might have received a link to this piece of material. This is our How to Pay for College guide, and it's not crucial that you have this guide while you're watching this presentation. However, once in a while in the upper right-hand corner, you may notice a page number, and that page number refers to this guide. Now, not that you have to follow along, but it just tells you where to find that information that I happen to be talking about. If you're watching this as a recording, or if you don't have the booklet, you can go to our website, which is the URL is listed up at the top, icansucceed.org/materials. Now, I do want to show our homepage on our website as well. The address, icansucceed.org. You'll notice across the top it has the different topics that you can find information about. Topics such as career planning, college planning, obviously financial aid. In the middle, you'll notice it says events and presentations. Some of you may be watching this from a link there. We have recorded presentations. We have upcoming events. You can schedule an appointment through our website, and we also have what we call quick links. And in the quick links section, we actually have a scholarship database that students and parents can kind of browse through. We have other materials you can download and print out. So please feel free to check out our website. Now, before we get into comparing financial aid offers, I want to go through a few things that you did to get there. So I do want to explain a little bit about what financial aid is. So financial aid is actually made up of these two components. There's what I call the good stuff. That's the gift financial aid. That's the money that neither the student nor the parent would have to pay back. Now, those grants and scholarships could be based on some special talent the student has, such as grade point average, class rank, athletic ability, or it could be based on what we call financial need. And then there's self-help financial aid, which would be in the form of loans that a student or a parent could access and then pay back. Or there's something called work study, where a college can set aside some money and the student has the opportunity to earn that money by working 10 to 20 hours a week or so, usually on campus. So in a nutshell, I guess you might say that is what financial aid is. Now, you should try not to think of financial aid as a way to pay for all of a student's education. Now, sometimes it might do that. Probably not often enough, it seems like, because usually year after year, we kind of tend to hear about tuition going up a little bit, and we don't hear a lot about increasing grant programs. But you should try not to think of financial aid as a way to pay for all of a student's education, but it's to be out there as a supplement to hopefully supplement what the family has in the form of their income and their assets to help them offset the cost of education. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that even though student loans or parent loans are a type of financial aid that somebody has to pay back eventually, it is considered to be a type of financial aid. So in order to get those financial aid offers from the college, you had to complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. It's required if you want to be considered for federal, most state kinds of financial aid, and sometimes the institution or the college or university might require that FAFSA. So what this application tried to do when you completed it is it tried to show the Department of Education and therefore the college as well, kind of a snapshot of what your family situation is. When you applied for financial aid, you went to this website, studentaid.gov, and if you want to be considered for financial aid for this coming fall, spring, here we are, by the way, right now in April of 2025, you fill out the 25-26 application. Now, when you filled this form out to be considered for financial aid, you had to use your 2023 tax information. Now, the reason I'm telling you that, you obviously know, but I'm telling you that because I want to kind of allude to that again just a little bit later. So when you filled it out, you had to use your 2023 income. So what the Department of Education did, they asked all of these questions, they ran it through a formula, and they came up with this number, this what we call a student aid index or an SAI. Now, sometimes this SAI isn't explained very well, I feel, from the Department of Education, but it is an index that colleges will use to determine what a student's eligibility is for financial aid. So this number is a dollar amount. What I tell families is it's probably an amount they don't all agree with, but it's actually a dollar amount that the Department of Ed thinks your family should be able to contribute towards a year of education. Now, that doesn't mean that's what you have to pay. It's just a number used in determining what the student's eligibility is for financial aid. So when you filled out the FAFSA, the questions they ask you are very specific, and you had to answer those questions just like they ask. But they didn't ask you things like, did you earn less money in 2024 than you did in 2023? They don't ask you things like, do you have a lot of medical expenses that aren't covered by insurance? Has anyone lost a job recently? They don't ask, are you going to earn less money in 2025 than you did in 2023? So if you have something occurring in your family where you feel that the results they came up with may not be an accurate snapshot of your family situation, you might have what we call a special circumstance. So what you do is you still had to fill out the application, but my suggestion to you would be contact the college or colleges the student's looking at going to and tell them what your situation is. Maybe the college can make a change based on your situation now. Maybe they won't. It depends on your situation and it also depends on the college, but you have to initiate that. So don't be afraid to contact the college to kind of talk about your situation. And if you've already received financial aid offers from the college, that's okay. You can still go and talk to them. By the way, I also want to mention that let's say the student goes to college this coming fall and something happens during the academic year. You know, maybe somebody loses a job or maybe there's medical expenses. So don't be afraid, even while the student's going to college, to talk to the financial aid office. Now, sometimes when a student has applied for financial aid, they might have been selected for a process called verification. And that just means that the college is required to go back and ask for a little kind of some verification of or documentation of certain things on the application. It doesn't mean they think you lied on the application. It's usually random. But the point is, this is all in the student's name. So be sure to be checking the student's college emails to make sure, or the student should be checking their emails to see if the financial aid office needs more information. If you've applied for financial aid and you haven't heard anything for a while from the college or university, don't be afraid to contact the financial aid office to see where the process is and with the application. So remember, all this is information goes through the student. So usually what they're going to do is they'll send the student an email to their college email account and they'll say something like, you are required to turn in certain documents before we can finish processing your aid. So be sure to be aware of that. Once a college determines that everything they have is accurate, that's when they're going to be sending these financial aid offers. And these financial aid offers actually will tell the student, if you come to our college, here's what our cost is, and here are the specific dollar amounts in these specific programs we're going to offer you to offset the cost of education. Now, I use the word send, that the college is going to send these offers. Usually, I believe that a college or university would send an email to the student to their college email account and say, log into your student portal, your financial aid offer is available for you to review. So again, if you haven't heard from the college and it's been a while, um, don't be afraid to log in first, check that student portal, but then if you see something that's not quite right or you don't see the offer, check with the college or university. By the way, here we are, early April. It's actually April 2nd of 2025. Now, and this last month is probably when a lot of colleges are sending out financial aid offers, depending on when a student completed the FAFSA. So probably between now and May is when you should be receiving these financial aid offers. Now on these offers, notice I have the direct costs and the indirect costs. So usually a college will kind of break out the cost. When a student goes to college, there are direct costs that have to be paid, and that's money that goes directly to the college or university. It would be tuition and fees, and then room and board if the student's going to be living on campus. Then there's what we call indirect costs of education. And that could include estimated amounts for books, supplies, transportation, miscellaneous clothing, personal expenses. So when a college tells you here's our cost, some of that is estimated. It's not actually a billed amount. So here's an example of a financial aid offer. And this is an actual example of a financial aid offer. And this would be in that booklet that you have as well, found on page 29. But every, I guess, financial aid offer can look a little bit different. Unfortunately, there's no standard format. But notice in this one, it has the cost of attendance across the top. And on the left, it says direct costs. So it says billed to you by the college. And that totals $23,000 for a student living on campus. So this, by the way, would be an example or could be an example of a 4-year public university. Notice on the right, it has about $4,100, but that's estimated for books, supplies, transportation, personal expenses. So it may or may not cost the student that much for books, etc. So my suggestion is when you're comparing financial aid offers and trying to figure out how much do we have to come up with, I would just look at the direct cost because the indirect costs are estimated, first of all. Maybe the student can work part-time, save a little bit of money over the summer. Maybe the parents can kind of come up with that. So I would just look at the direct cost when you're looking at the cost. So let's do add the total cost together though. So we've got 23,000 on the upper left. We've got 4,100 for indirect costs. That total equals $27,100. Now, if you bring your eyes down to the bottom of the screen, you'll notice that it says total award $27,100. So somebody at a glance might say, well, the cost is 27,100. They're awarding 27,100. It looks like a full ride. That's great. They're paying for everything. Well, but if you look a little bit more closely in between at the financial aid they're offering, you'll notice that they're offering $9,000 in, remember what I called the good stuff, the grants and scholarships that don't have to be paid back. They're offering a little bit over $16,000 in in loans that if you access those would have to be paid back. And they're going to set aside $2,000 in work study that a college or that a student can earn by working part-time on campus. So be sure to review these financial aid offers, kind of examine them to see what's a grant, what needs to be paid back, what doesn't. They might even tell you what grants will be continued year after year, just to let you know. But that's what you look at is you take the direct costs, you subtract the grants and scholarships, and then you kind of come up with what's it going to cost us out of pocket. So here's kind of a simplified way of comparing two colleges. I've got a student that applied for aid. They looked at College A and College B. The cost at College A, the direct cost, I should say, is $43,900. The direct cost at College B would be $23,000, just like that previous example we looked at. College A in this example, they're offering the student $27,200 in the scholarships and grants. College B, they're offering $6,350. So we take the direct cost, we subtract the scholarships and grants, and we come up with $16,700 for College A. We take the direct cost at College B, we subtract what they're offering, and we come up with about 16.7 almost. So a couple things about this. First of all, when you're looking at colleges, try not to just look at those direct costs. Don't just look at the cost and say, well, that's what it's going to cost. I guess, maybe we can't afford that. Eventually what you do when you get these financial aid offers is you look at the cost versus financial aid. Because you may find, like in this example, some of these more expensive colleges might have more institutional money they can offer to offset the cost. And it doesn't always work out like that. But notice here, College A is almost double the cost of College B, almost. But once they offer these scholarships and grants, it comes out to be about the same out of pocket. So that's kind of how this financial aid stuff works. That's how you kind of compare financial aid offers. Once you've looked at what are we going to have to come up with out of pocket, that in my mind is when it's decision time. So you start thinking about, well, maybe the student gets 3 financial aid offers, so they know the cost at all 3 of those colleges. Maybe again, you don't just look at that cost though, you look at what's it really going to cost us out of pocket to go to these different colleges. And the financial aid offer will tell you that. So maybe the student really wants to go to a certain college. Maybe that college isn't offering enough financial aid. Maybe we can't afford that college. Maybe we go to another college that would be less expensive out of pocket. Work to pay the balance. If a student works 10 to 20 hours a week while they're in college, studies have shown in the past that students tend to do as well as, if not better academically, than a student who doesn't work. Plus, maybe they'll bring home $400 to $800 or so every month to help offset some of those costs of education. Most colleges will offer a monthly payment plan. So maybe instead of coming up with half of it at the beginning of each semester, you kind of spread it out monthly. And then there's also loans that students and or parents can access. So notice when I listed these different ways to kind of come up with other funding, I put loans last, and that was intentional. My suggestion would be try to figure out how we can come up with money. How can we come up with this out-of-pocket expense without borrowing student loans? And we'll talk more about that just a little bit later. So eventually then, once you determine where the student's going to go, and by the way, hopefully money's not the only thing determining where a student's going to go, but it's obviously an important factor. But once you determine that, then, and usually this is all through that student portal, you electronically sign the award letter, return it to the school, and then register for orientation. Now, I know this presentation is on comparing financial aid offers, but I'm going to throw a couple tips out there for orientation as well. I know that students, people in general, are busy over the summer. Maybe the student after they graduate from college, maybe they want to, I don't know, travel a little bit or visit some people, or maybe they want to work full time so they can help offset the cost of education. That would be a good plan. So maybe they're thinking, well, maybe I'll just register for classes right before school starts. That would be convenient for me. Well, keep in mind that incoming freshmen are going to be probably one of the last people to register for classes. So you don't want to delay it any longer than you have to. Sometimes classes kind of fill up a little bit. And if they don't fill up, maybe there's certain sections, certain times the classes meet that may be less desirable than other times. So my suggestion would be to sign up as early as you can for orientation to register for your classes for that coming fall. And with most of those things, you just use that online college student portal. Payment plans, there could be some other things you have to do to make those payment plans if that's something you're going to do. And if you end up accessing loans, there's a few things you'll have to do electronically as well. I'm going to give you a suggestion about loans. So on the financial aid offer, they might want you to tell them how much you want to borrow. My suggestion would be to wait and not tell them that until maybe July, for example, because maybe the student graduates in May, maybe they end up getting some different scholarships from who knows where, private sources, things like that, or maybe they work a little bit early in the summer and they figure out, well, maybe I don't want to borrow student loans. Maybe I can afford to pay for college without the loans. So it's not urgent that you tell them, I want the loan now. You can always wait till July and then say, here's how much I want to borrow if you do end up wanting to borrow. So I want to talk just a little bit about the different kinds of financial aid that you might find on these financial aid offers. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I do want to talk about a few things. We talked about this at the beginning. There's two kinds of financial aid. There's grants and scholarships you don't pay back, and then there's the self-help financial aid. These are the four funding sources of financial aid. There's the federal government, the state government, the college or university the student goes to, and there's private sources of aid. So you may find financial aid on this financial aid offers from one or more or all of these different sources. So I just wanted you to know where some of that money was coming from. I never make guarantees when it comes to financial aid or financial aid offers, but I can almost guarantee that most every student will be offered this, and that's a student loan. They'll either be offered both of these loans we're looking at, subsidized and unsubsidized, or they'll be offered the unsubsidized loan. If a student shows financial need, the government can subsidize some of the loan. That means they pay the interest. If a student does not show need, they can still take out a student loan, but it's not subsidized. That means the interest starts accruing right away. These are student loans, by the way. These are loans in the student's name. Notice that interest rate, that's for a student going to school this year. It changes every July 1st. We don't know what it's going to be next year or the following year after that. That's for this year. And this year it's a little over 6.5%. These are the federal maximums that students can borrow. So notice a first year student, the most they can borrow is $5,500, and this is based on their grade level. So these loans will be the easiest loan a student has ever offered in their lifetime, most likely. There's no credit check, there's no cosigner. If the student's bill is paid and they take this loan out, the money goes right into their pocket. If the bill is not paid, then the money goes directly to the college. So I can tell you from experience, these loans are easy to borrow, but I can also tell you from firsthand experience, they're not necessarily so easy to pay back. So that's why we suggest that you borrow loans if you need them, but if you don't need them, try to stay away. So there's lots of words on this slide, but basically it says that ideally a student would have some idea of what their first year starting salary is going to be depending on what career they're going into, and try not to borrow more than what that first year starting salary is going to be. Or studies have shown they may have some difficulties making those payments. So in this example, the student borrowed $40,000. That means their monthly payments beginning 6 months after they graduate would be about $400 a month every month for 10 years, every month for 10 years. Now, and they won't pay back $40,000, by the way. They'd probably pay closer to $47,000 to $50,000 back, depending on the interest rate. So again, loans are there if you need them, but if you can keep that loan debt down, that would be great. There are some tools you can use, some kind of, I guess tools would be the right word, that you can use to do some planning. There's a return on investment, college investment tool, and a game plan tool to help you kind of estimate your career's repayment capabilities. And these are on student loans website, and I'll show you a little bit later kind of the website as well, kind of a screenshot. So parents, you might also be offered a loan on these financial aid offers. It's something called a PLUS loan. So notice, and this by the way would be a loan that a parent can take out for the student. Notice the interest rate quite a bit higher than the student loan. It's a little over 9% for this year that we're in now, and it changes every July 1st as well. They also take out about a little over 4% in fees right off the top. There is a credit check required, and the amount that a parent could borrow would be the total cost of attendance minus any financial aid that the student gets. Now, I've worked with a lot of families over the years, and I've had parents tell me, well, we know that that's our only option is the PLUS loan if we want to borrow more for college expenses. So that's what we've been doing is taking out a PLUS loan. I want you to know that the PLUS loan usually is not your only option. There are other loans that are out there. They're called private or alternative loans. You can see that there's different lenders. They have different interest rates. I'm showing you the current fixed interest rates, and it varies depending on your credit. But most of these, at least they all, start out well lower than the PLUS loan interest rate. These loans can be in the parent's name for the student, or they could be in the student's name with a credit-worthy cosigner. So obviously not pushing loans. I'm sure you're not getting that impression, but I just want you to know there's other options out there. So do your research before you actually sign on the dotted line would be my suggestion. I mentioned a little bit earlier some college tools or planning tools that students can access and parents as well. This is on Iowa Student Loans website. Notice at the top they offer some scholarships and planning tools. Um, if someone were to take a loan out through Iowa Student Loan, they require that the student go through some of these tools to make sure they're not over borrowing. So they're very good tools to use, especially that college funding forecaster, where, for example, if you have two financial aid offers, you can actually plug the numbers in there to help do some planning. So be sure to check out their website, iowastudentloan.org. So winding down, this is my last slide for the presentation, the places to go to for help. Don't be afraid to talk to the college, the financial aid office. If you, like I've been saying throughout the presentation, if you applied for aid and you haven't received a financial aid offer and it's been a while or haven't heard from the college, give them a call and see what's going on. Sometimes they might only be able to talk to the student, just to let you know, as compared to the parent. They might just talk to the student because of regulations, but don't be afraid to talk to the college. And we talked about special circumstances. If you have something that changes or has changed since you applied, don't be afraid to talk to the college. Obviously, you can give us a call at ICANN. As you probably know, everything we do is for free. You can call our toll-free number, or you can schedule an appointment through our website. You can send emails to us, and everything we do is for free. There's no charge. So be sure to take advantage of those services. So I do, again, want to thank you all for joining me tonight. I hope you gained some information. If you have questions, please feel free to contact our office during business hours um, at the toll-free number that's listed, and we'd be happy to help you out. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great year.